Hello, people of the internet. What's up? This is the Front Lounge, episode 44. Got a great guest today, Austin, singer-songwriter based here in Austin with us. Pat Byrne. We'll get to introducing him in a moment. We're very excited for you guys to hear the two songs he recorded in the studio before this that we'll play as part of this podcast. It's been a pleasure recording with him here. Off the bat, if you are not on our Discord, join our Discord. Number one reason is it's a really cool community with all fans of the band that talk about all that kind of stuff. It's also a really cool and fun place where they don't talk about the band Congos and they talk about other things, which is kind of the nice thing about Discord is it takes on a life of its own. It's grown this organic community. And the other thing is, if you're not a fan of our Discord or on our Discord, you're not getting the free download that we gave away this week of the live version of When You're Here that we've been posting on socials over the last few weeks. We did this live concert for a virtual concert in Mexico back in like 2020. And I've just been going back and looking through that footage and came across, I think it's such a great version that When You're Here of that. We might actually put it out officially, but if you're on Discord, you've got that for free, ready to download. Other than that, follow us on Instagram at The Front Lounge and support the podcast at patreon.com/Congos. And that's about that on that front. Here we go. This is our podcast with Pat Byrne. Say hello to Pat Byrne, and we'll get into... We've already found out a lot about you, but we're going to pretend like we don't know anything and get to know you on this. So this is Pat Byrne here.
Hello. Thanks for having me here.
So like every one of our guests so far, or a lot of them, this all began because we played a crazy, tiny little open mic in Wimberley. Through that, we met a guest that, if you watched the episode, I think 2 episodes ago, was Shayna Sands, great singer-songwriter here. We said to her, who should we get on? Who should we know about here in Austin? She said, you got to check out Pat Byrne. We did, loved what we heard, and invited you on here. And so this tiny little open mic has become like this weird little beginning of a web for us, which is kind of cool.
Thank you, Shayna.
Yeah.
That's great.
So you're obviously not from Austin. You're from Scotland.
I'm from Ireland.
I know.
But people always say Scotland, Australia. I've gotten South Africa.
Yeah.
But yes, Ireland.
Anyone but Australia is all I concerned about. When people mess up the accent, like fine, Irish, Scottish, English even, but not Australia. So yeah, you're from
where in Ireland?
I'm from a tiny village called Borris in County Carlow in the southeast of Ireland. Kilkenny's the closest city, if anyone. That's like more of a tourist place that people might recognise, but my village is pretty much unknown. It's beautiful though.
So when you say small, how small are we talking?
1,200 people.
Okay, like actually small.
The street is a mile long. So that's
even the fact that you called it the street.
The street. It's one street, yeah.
Danny's got that friend, because a lot of people say small town. In America, small town for a lot of people means like 50,000, 60,000, yeah. Right. But you've got that friend we played poker with. He's like, it was like 200 people in his town.
Who?
I think Harvey.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, when I say small town, I mean like we had a gas station.
Right, yeah.
Period.
Like Wimberley's a small town. It's 2,600 people or something like that.
Right.
But on the weekends, it balloons to like 20, 30,000 or something.
We did that gig in Elizabeth, Minnesota. That was in the driving in. You just see a sign that says population 172.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, Minnesota. We're like, fuck. And then we pulled up, and it was dark already, and there was a gas station, the venue, and a church. That was it. And there was a red glowing cross. And that was the only thing that was lit up, was just like bright red glowing cross.
It felt like opening to a vampire movie for sure.
So what's the closest, biggest town then to that?
It's Kilkenny is it's a city, but again, that's a really small city. Most people would call that a small town over here. And then Dublin's like an hour and a half away. So
Okay.
But in Irish terms, an hour and a half away is like a Lord of the Rings style expedition. Here, I'll drive to Houston. I had a residency in Houston every Wednesday, and it was like a 3.5 hour drive every Wednesday. Yeah. And if you drive for 3.5 hours in Ireland, you just end up in the ocean. So my sense of distance has changed a lot since moving here.
So when did you moved here? 2017, you said? 2018?
I came here in 2017, just kind of traveling around the States, exploring, and fell in love with the place. And then in 2018, after I stopped taking gigs in Ireland, I moved over because I just loved it so much. So I've been here consistently since 2018.
Just give us a quick like rundown. You're playing music in Ireland.
Yeah, when I was 15, I started playing in pubs, you know, in my village, and there wasn't anyone else playing music, so there was no one to tell me how bad I was. I had these 4 chords, and I squeezed every song into those 4 chords, and I just played every weekend. And did that all the way through my 20s. Eventually started playing weddings, you know, making money doing it, but not. I was too scared to write songs, didn't think I would be able to do that. So I wasn't really an artist in that sense, but I definitely sang and played like multiple times a week. So my chops were okay. And then when I moved here and I saw people making a living playing songs they'd written, you know, and they're not huge superstars, they're like, there's like a middle class of musician here where you can tour and play house concerts and make the same money. I had to play weddings to make that money. So I was like, that's where I want to be. I want to start writing songs. My soul had completely evaporated from playing the same 30 songs at weddings for 10 years. And my
I
life
think it's
just
an interesting
completely changed.
thing you said, though, that you started off basically playing covers as a working musician. There's got to be a benefit to that, though, in some respects, because you learn a lot when you're playing the songs that people want to hear at weddings. You're playing hit songs, so you're playing all the best songs in one aspect to it. So you learn things from that, like all the Beatles, all these bands began as like house bands, you know, in clubs playing hits, and there's something to be learned from that, rather than like what we have now, particularly on the Instagram, is like everyone's like, I just picked up a guitar, here's my song.
And it's there for everyone to hear, the whole world, forever. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be gained from being in a cover band. Just the demystification of being on stage and just being in front of people singing all the time. You lose your nerves. Well, you know, you're always going to be a bit nervous, but, you know, being on stage is not a terrifying thing to me.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, just playing the songs that have worked for, like, 50 years, you know what a good song is supposed to be like. And, yeah, and obviously just the little things like getting better at playing your instrument and singing, and knowing what it takes physically to play all the time. You know.
Yeah.
So one of your songs is kind of your story of coming here. What was it? What's it like? Was that your first time moving and living outside of Ireland?
Yes. Well, I lived in London for 3 months where I did do an original record. I had a record deal, and the album was completely written for me. And it didn't work out, but that's the only time I've lived outside of Ireland. That was a whole thing. But then quickly after that, I returned to playing weddings, and moving here was the first time I'd lived away from Ireland for more than like 3 months, you know. Yeah.
And you're moving straight into the South. Like, well, I guess Austin's not the South, but it's still, compared to, when you think about it, compared to like Europe, it's a whole different
It's so different.
culture.
Yeah. And Austin, you know, a lot of people say Austin's not Texas, even though, you know, it's Texas, but it's definitely its own thing. It's my favorite place in the world.
What did your family and friends have as an idea when you said, I'm moving to Texas? Because Texas has got mythical status, I feel like, around the world of like, you know, guns, cowboys.
That's what I pictured too, you know, until I got here, until I got to Austin. But yeah, everyone thought it was really cool, you know. People in Ireland generally move to New York or San Diego or, you know, the coasts.
Yeah.
And that was part of the allure for me, was going somewhere that no one I know has lived there, and or even really traveled there. It's not like a high destination for people in Ireland.
What was your first gig in Austin? How'd you get it?
I got a manager before I moved here who lives in Houston, and he's been great, and he organized like a really good string of shows when I landed here. I actually landed and I played some gigs in Boston, rented a car, drove and played a festival in Florida, and then when I got to Austin, he had me in some legendary places like Green Hall, like we spoke about, McGonagall's Mucky Duck in Houston, which is a great listening room, Anderson Fair in Houston, because that's where he lived. And then I got to Austin and I was playing like the Saxon Pub, and where else did I play in Austin? ABGB, if you've been to that place, and kind of a lot of the places I still play today. But I had no original songs, so I was doing like covers and some of those songs that were written for me when I was in London like 10 years ago, and I was really uncomfortable and had serious imposter syndrome. Like, I don't deserve to be on these stages playing. Did a lot of Irish songs because they're almost original to people over here. You know, no one knows them. They're old folk songs. You can do your own thing with them. But after I did those first run of shows, I just locked myself away for 6 months and wrote an album, and then kind of I've just been writing ever since.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned when we were chatting before we started here that you started really getting more into Willie Nelson and that. What were you growing up listening to, and like how did that change when you came to Austin, like the kind of epicenter of a certain kind of country music? Because for us, we listened to a lot of country growing up, like the stuff you would hear as a non-specifically country music fan. When we came here, driving around these roads, I think all of us just went deep and heavy into that outlaw country. Did you kind of do a similar thing?
Absolutely. My whole musical landscape got turned upside down when I moved to Texas. And I had no idea that Texas and Austin was this music mecca. I really didn't until I got here. So, I mean, growing up, I listened to a lot of Irish folk music. I love that. And I loved Americana, you know, Springsteen and Bob Dylan and Paul Simon and Neil Young and Warren Zevon and Randy Newman. A lot of those big names. That's who I loved. And Tom Waits. And that it's all American music, but when I moved here, there's a whole different like subgenre almost of Texas country. Guys like Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt and James McMurtry, who plays every Tuesday night in a bar in town. It's like, just the quality of songwriting is like the best I'd ever heard. I didn't realize how good songs could be, and now it's almost hard. It's harder for me to listen to some of the stuff I used to listen to. But I just became obsessed with, I don't even know if I call it country, but just the songwriters in Texas. They take it so seriously, and there's such a reverence, and you can see it in the crowds. You know, people pay money to go listen to someone they've never heard of, and they'll listen to their lyrics, and if they like it, they'll buy the record, and they're a fan for life. It's like, just I was totally unaware of that kind of thing.
Did you catch the Willis Allen Ramsey show?
On Saturday?
No, this is a couple months ago at Sam's.
Willis Allen Ramsey at Sam's? No, I've seen him twice at the Saxon Pub, but he's incredible.
I mean, but the kind of reverence thing that you're talking about, I knew nothing about the guy. I didn't know the Cult album. This guy's had, you know, J.J. Cale, I think, and he produced it, or Leon Russell maybe. They were involved in that making of that record. It became a kind of cult classic. But yeah, the audience was fucking spellbound for an hour. You know, you could hear a pin drop, and they were just watching. It's rare, you know. You don't really come across that kind of thing. He made one album in his whole life, 1972, and if you listen to it, it's probably the best album ever. Like, it's the most beautifully produced, gorgeous bunch of songs, and he's just never done anything since. And it's, I don't know, that's a very uniquely kind of Texan attitude. Like, people are like, when's the next album coming? And his answer is, what was wrong with the first one? And he's been touring it, and people love it because they're classic songs. And
I feel like there's something we've talked about a bit on this podcast. There's an authenticity to folk music. If it's real folk music from whatever it is, whatever culture or whatever part of the world you're in, like, you relate to it, I think, when you're in that place. So when we moved to Texas and I moved out into the country, and I got this truck. It was like an old beat up farm truck, and all that doesn't have anything but the radio. So I started to listen to, like, I couldn't listen to anything else but the country station, and most of it's shit. Most of it's just like pandering bullshit.
Right.
But like, the more I listened to some of the good country and some of the good folk music from the area, like, it may be the same lyrics as like a pandering country song about the red dirt road and this and the bud, whatever. But if it's a good one and it's something authentic about it, I started to like feel like, hey, that's me. Like, I related to that, and it touches something deeper in you, being in the place where there's this genuine folk or genuine writing about like folk and like that, your experience of being in that land. I feel like that's pretty strong here. And it's growing. The more, like, I'm starting to enjoy a lot more country and folk music, especially Texas stuff.
Right. For me growing up, and for a lot of my friends in Ireland, country's almost a bad word.
Yeah.
Like, when you hear it, you think of the pandering
Not the
kind of
first
bullshit.
part.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When you combine both, it's an even worse word. But yeah, when you get to see the real stuff, like, that's not pandering and it's not formulaic, and it's produced with a real organic kind of authentic thing.
Yeah.
It's
Have you been to Luckenbach?
Yeah, I played Lukenbach.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there for the first time a few months ago, and just like listening to the song Lukenbach, Texas,
Yeah.
like on our way there, is just something. It hits you different, as they say.
Right, yeah.
It's funny because there's the same thing about California, you know, like all that Laurel Canyon era, and like there is a mythical thing that happened in Los Angeles and in Southern California in the 60s and 70s. But it's so giant, and it's like it's so difficult now that if I hear a song that's like talking about California, I don't think that you can do a good song about California anymore.
The Chili Peppers have tried every album they've tried some California songs.
They did exist,
Eagles
like
of Death
Joni
Metal.
Mitchell. Yeah, I guess Eagles of Death Metal.
I mean, it's called Wannabe in L.A.
Yeah, and also they're capturing, I think, what the true essence of LA is right now, which is just like this hellhole,
Yeah,
which I love, but you know.
What was the folk music of LA in like the 80s? It was like Poison and
All those
it was the hair
Beverly
metal.
Hills Cop theme song.
Randy Newman's I Love LA is a great one.
That's a good one.
Just because it's like everyone writes about
I'm gonna
it.
write a song called "If You Can Make It Here, You Can Make It Anywhere Except New York."
That's good.
So talking about folk music and country music in particular, you can't separate American folk music from Irish folk music. The influence of Ireland, in terms of immigrants moving from Ireland throughout the 19th and 20th century, has been such a massive influence. And if you listen to like the old, real proper like Kentucky bluegrass music, to me, it's like it might as well be Irish folk music. It's so, it's such one step away from that. So has that played into it any like direct influence being an Irish singer-songwriter? How is that playing into like your new Texan, being a Texan now?
Yeah, I'm Texan now. Very much so. I definitely write in an Americana style because that is what I listen to and that is my thing. But growing up, because I listened to so much of that early folk music from Ireland. We got some tree people outside.
Yeah.
No, but listening to all that old poetry and Irish stuff just seeps into, it's in your DNA.
Yeah.
So I try not to lose my accent when I'm singing, and it's a kind of an immigrant perspective of some of my songs, But like you were saying, the folk music here, it's just a direct evolution. It's Irish.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that old, simply from the fact that it predates it. I mean, it's just older music, and it became what it is now. But they moved to what do you call that area in America? Those hills that go through the
Appalachians?
Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where bluegrass started, right? And
Yeah.
it was Irish tunes.
Yeah.
And they slowly became bluegrass tunes, and then people put lyrics to them, and now it's...
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, our brother Jesse, he's Congress music on the chat. Like if he's watching, so he's chiming in here. He says nothing but. You kind of answered a little bit, but he's got two daughters. They're doing Irish dance. So it's all
great.
they listen to is Irish dance now.
I
in
used
the
to do
house.
that when I was a kid, yeah. I got
Okay,
some
so his
medals.
question was like, did you grow up with that? Did you grow up with traditional Irish music and in the household?
Well, yeah, in the house, not so much. My dad was a huge Beatles fan. My mother loved Simon and Garfunkel. Like that's the stuff that in my house that I heard. But when you grow up in Ireland, you spend a lot of time in the pub because that is where we congregate and that's where we celebrate. And it's a family thing. It's not like a grimy bar. It's a warm sitting room with a fire and someone playing Irish music. And I grew up playing bodhrán. It's like an old Irish drum. I used to sit in on sessions and everyone plays. Everyone has a song that they sing. And every Tuesday in school, we had to do Irish dancing. So, yeah, I grew up, the culture is thick in Ireland and you can't escape it. And you have to learn the Irish language from the age of 4 to 16.
So do you speak?
No. Because it's so, if I listen to someone speaking it, I can understand a lot of it. It's a very difficult language.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've nailed the teaching of it. So, sadly, there's not that many people that are fluent. I mean, there are big areas in Ireland called the Gaeltacht, where people speak exclusively Irish, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's the same. We grew up, we're of Greek origin on our dad's side, and we went to a Greek school where you had to learn Greek. And people always say, "That's great. Do you speak Greek?" We go, "No." It's like one of those things. I feel like, in retrospect, I regret not actually taking it a little more seriously and learning to speak Greek properly. Do you regret not?
Big time.
Yeah.
because it's such an amazing. You know, we would all be speaking Irish if it wasn't for the English, you know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad that we're given, because in Ireland now, because it's forced on you, the language, like
Right.
Greek was for you maybe. You don't have a choice, and a lot of people resent it because it's very difficult.
Right.
And it goes towards your points, you know, when you're leaving school, and some people can't get the jobs they want to because they're not good at Irish. You can't be like a teacher if you're not really good at Irish. So there's campaigns for people to get rid of take it off the road signs, stop making it mandatory in school, which I think would be tragic to just lose it.
No, everything's just going to end up as the same, like Amazon box.
What is
Exactly.
What's the origin of the language?
Ooh, you might need to get someone else in on this podcast.
Like, is it okay? Yeah,
I know
'cause-
who we can ask. Pernilla is asking.
Yeah.
She was commenting on the fact that teachers have to be able to speak Irish. I think her family, if I remember correctly, she's a regular listener of the podcast here. Was that she's always answering questions for us, and I feel like we just put it out and she'll answer that question for us.
Well, you know, she may know a lot, but she's also behind a screen and has access to Google, which we don't have right now. So
Someone was telling me that the Norse and Anglo-Saxon people were almost at one point could communicate. The languages were so similar. So like the roots of Irish and Scottish and all that, I think they have a lot more kind of Norse stuff going on, and then the Anglo-Saxon stuff was English. You know, the Germanic stuff was coming into England. You can feel a difference in the
because it is. I mean, it's fucking strange language when you hear all the Latin-based languages.
they have a thread.
They all have a thread. Yeah, you can all. It sounds like they're all from the same family, and then there's a few that just are completely in their own world, like they were isolated for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah,
Estonians got very distant roots.
yeah. Like I watched a Turkish show recently on Netflix, and that is a bizarre language. It took me like 10 minutes of listening just to try to see if I could narrow down the.
Well, because it's not quite
region.
it's not Arabic, right? I mean,
No,
obviously it's not Arabic, but it might not even be based on Arabic.
No, I don't
'cause
think
it's
it. Well,
pre-Arabic.
I'm just shooting from the hip here, as they say in
They
Texas.
call it
don't know.
Proto-Indo-European or something like that. Whatever.
Well, there, see, Pernilla's saying 80%, or they DNA tested the people around Rush, Ireland. 80% are descended from Norwegian Vikings. That's near Dublin, by the way.
Yeah.
We should just have Pernilla do the podcast for us.
Fact checker.
I found Seamus Ennis, who's I don't even know how to pronounce it. Ulian, how do you say that?
Uilleann Pipes.
Uilleann Pipes. And that music, I mean, we grew up, my dad has always loved bagpipes of the Scottish variety and the Irish variety.
These ones are better. The
I
Uilleann Pipes.
actually agree.
They're way more beautiful.
Yeah, they
So-
are. And when I came across this Seamus Ennis, who's a legend, it's just like it pierces your heart immediately. That the music, and then also something specifically about the sound, the overtones, or whatever is captured in that instrument, which is a whack. If anyone has never seen, it's a wacky instrument to look at because you're pumping up bellows effectively with your arms. Instead of, it's not like a Scottish bagpipe where you're blowing to fill up the, I don't know if it's bellows or like the bag basically.
Yeah.
But absolutely beautiful instrument. I love listening to that.
Beautiful and complicated and not mass produced anywhere. You have to find someone who's able to make Uilleann Pipes.
Yeah.
They're very expensive. Finding someone to give you lessons is very difficult. But when there's an Uilleann Pipe player, it's not like, oftentimes if a bagpipe player walks into a room, that's the end. You know, you're not going to hear anything else, and it's very intrusive, I find.
Yeah.
But if an Uilleann Pipe player could sit here and just accompany me while I'm playing guitar and singing, and it's beautiful and soft and
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of similarities between that and you hear when in Greek culture when they play clarinet or clarino as they call it, they do different things. Like when you hear traditional, like now Western clarinet music, it's very like follows the same scale. There's not a lot of bending in between notes, but the Greeks bend it. Like not like Beckham, and it ends up sounding a lot more like either a bagpipe or even an Indian Shehnai, where you've got kind of nasally, like harshish but still beautiful sound that's
got that
bending
Shania
between all the
Twain
notes.
to it.
Shania Twain.
my first instrument was clarinet.
Yeah, we played that in middle school as
orchestra,
well.
yeah.
In orchestra.
I went through a lot of different instruments. I wasn't good at any of them.
Yeah, I wish I still played it because it's always like that. The instruments that I was like embarrassed to play it, as a 12 and 13-year-old, whatever, being in band and playing stupid clarinet. And now it's like, I wish I could play my own clarinet on an album.
Play my own clarinet. Is that a euphemism for something? Let's just look at this real quick because we've been talking about good music and things that are good. Watch this for a moment.
Is that 30 Seconds from Mars Day?
Maniac Messiah, destruction is his game. A beautiful
Joey,
Just stop
now,
it
play-
right there. Do you want to hear more?
Yeah, because otherwise it's not.
liar, love for him is pain. The timbers are now burning.
I'm going to stop so we don't
I feel
get pulled down. But he's
should
got to
should
be the
fucking,
worst,
You should
right?
be banned from the. Yeah, but he's the worst, but you're the worst because the shit he fucking sends. It literally puts me. It makes me depressive every time he sends us a link. You never know what it's going to be, and something he finds it's painful. Everything you find on the internet.
Here's the crazy
I didn't
thing.
know he was still making music. I thought it's all acting.
I
now.
wouldn't
He's
call it
still
that.
not making music.
Right.
Well, it is all acting all the time with him.
Even
Yeah.
the Uilleann Pipes wouldn't save that.
No.
Pernilla's asking, here's a good question to ask everyone. If you could wake up tomorrow and be an expert at one instrument instantly, which one would you choose? So we'll start with you, Danny.
Texas Instruments. One instrument. Probably piano. It's a writing instrument,
Piano for sure.
Piano, yeah. Well, I've already got that covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
an expert.
in terms of just, I wish I could play the fiddle,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I wouldn't choose it over piano because piano you can write. And that's,
See, I would actually go with something like clarinet or some bendable instrument because obviously I'm not an expert at piano, but like I can play piano well enough. I don't feel like I could become an expert if I wasn't so fucking lazy. But
What
I'd
if the
love
question was though, you can only be an expert at one
Oh,
instrument?
so I have to lose the
you
other
lose
one?
everything you have now, but you're an expert at one. You'd
That's
pick
tough.
piano.
I'd probably pick piano. It's just too versatile
Yeah.
and useful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of an easy one. But I
might pick guitar at that point.
I've
Carry
been
it with you. So guitar is a much better post-apocalyptic instrument.
Yeah, that's true. You can.
You just need to
walk around
find.
with
You
it.
need to source some strings,
Yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
good.
Can we just go back to this guy for a second?
To Jared Leto.
Yeah.
The fuck is wrong with this guy?
I wanna
and his
know-
face and his eyes and
I question this a lot. I want to know why is it that when you watch something like that your whole body like wants to revolt, like it wants to jump out of its skin, like you feel very uncomfortable in your own skin. Why?
because
is
you have a
Well-
Jared Leto in you.
We're all constantly suppressing our inner Jared Leto, and we hate him for letting it out. It's no, I totally get. I have the same sensation, and sometimes I really think it's something in us.
Oh, yeah.
Why would this bother us? Why
Yeah.
should it bother us? Let
know
him do
that.
it, but it does.
Yeah.
and
think-
it's like it
yeah.
has to come from some kind of insecurity.
Yeah.
Because you got a liar in you. There's that. He's always everything is performative with him, and it's kind of weird and creepy, and everything's for some ulterior motive, and nothing's ever for its own sake, and that's the part in you that you probably hate. Well, I mean, that's definitely the part of me that I hate. It's like
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to basically just accept that on faith because I don't think I've ever met myself as annoying as him, but I know that it's true as a concept that anything that reflects in you negatively is in you. Like it's not. It has to reverberate
Right, because you
against
could
something.
You could not easily, but just theoretically, you could easily watch it impartially and have no reaction to it, and just see it like you saw anything else, like any other manifestation of life, like a tree growing and Jared Leto singing.
Yeah, but I don't know if
To
people
the
can
camera.
hear there's chainsaws going on outside.
Yeah.
They would cut that tree down, I feel like.
But it is, you could do that, but there's just this like the automatic reaction it's almost unstoppable. I can't control it. Like I can't control this feeling. Like
yeah.
it is probably impossible to stop, but I think you could potentially not take so much pleasure in it. You know, because that, like, you get a secret pleasure out of hating shit, and that is probably useless.
That's what drives 90% of internet traffic is secret pleasure in cringe, effectively.
Right.
You know, like that people love that feeling. It's like chails on a chalkboard. Nails on a chalkboard. It's something, that is appealing about it in a weird way. So,
Well, we solved that.
what do you guys think about these fucking aliens or balloons? Have you been seeing this? I'm assuming you've seen.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you being serious?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
So I guess American
Do you
Air
have an
Force.
article? You have a
I haven't got an article pulled up, but I'm sure most people have heard about it. Has shot down now 2 or 3 unidentified flying objects. One was over Alaska, one over Montana, and then one over upper Michigan or something. A fourth, the Chinese are saying they've shot down. So there's a big debate going on.
And one of them, the pilots are reporting like what they've reported before, but they don't know how they can't see the propulsion mechanism keeping this thing up in the air. So they're calling it a UFO.
And these have been shot down, and there's
In the last week.
and recovered, like the.
No information yet on that.
Wow.
Well, yeah. See, this is coming from. There's no such thing as a reliable source, but let's say mainstream sources like CNN or whatever is reporting on this. So it's not coming from some like deep dark web thing.
Yeah.
There is no information. Like it's like, we shot these things down. End of story. Nothing else really to talk about. And it's interesting. At the same time, this feels like you brought up the point, like if they've traveled here.
No, Danny brought it up.
Danny, if they've traveled here from millions or billions of miles away in light years, and then we just shoot them down, like, are we winning this war, or are they not actually aliens, or is this a made-up story? Like, it's a weird one.
So you said the balloon. What's the balloon thing?
Well, there was a balloon that was initially, this was prior to these other UFOs that was shot down. I think that was acknowledged as a Chinese spy device. Like it was floating over wherever. That was Ohio or Kansas or something. Right. That one they're saying was just, there was
just a spy balloon.
Just a spy balloon. We shot that one down.
Just a spy balloon.
Someone's just thought of putting, it's like, what's that? Ad libs. So they just put random words together, like spy balloon.
So yeah, I don't know. It's in my mind, I have no doubt that there are aliens, as in intelligent life forms in the universe somewhere. That's about as much as I'm willing to say with not certainty, but like, it just feels like
it's a Calvin and Hobbes line. The proof of intelligence is life is that they haven't visited us. Yeah. Like that's, I mean, it just seems like a massive fucking distraction of it. I don't know about
this particular group of things.
This is really weird. It's really weird, basically. When have they announced anything like this 3 times in a week that the Air Force has shot down,
burying the lead,
shot down UFOs? Like that's a real, whether it's real or if it's some distraction or whatever it is, it's really bizarre.
How have I not? I'm pretty bad with current affairs.
No, I envy your position, because if you've not heard of that, that means you're actually fairly well sealed off from news and the internet, and that is a great place to be in because it's life destroying. That kind of bombardment of news constantly.
Unless the UFO lands on Pat's house.
Yeah,
but then
I
who
could have
cares?
avoided it.
Yeah.
No, I've
Should have been on Twitter.
I've had periods of my life where I've been really tuned into what's happening and watching the news for like it's because it's so entertaining and but it also makes you feel horrible.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably around the Biden Trump election thing. I was like, I'm not watching anything anymore. It was insane. I'd never seen anything like that, and when you're in the country, it's so much more palpable, and visceral. And I was like, I'm just not watching any more news because it's such horse shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not on Twitter. I have a Twitter account, but I've never looked at it. And so I'm
living the
pretty
life.
good. Well, also I've been super busy moving house and and playing quite a bit, and so I just don't. I'm glad I don't. But
that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that sarcastically. Like, it's an enviable position to have cut that out of your life. And I guess I've gone through periods where I've cut it out, and then you come back, and then it sucks you back in, and there you are caring about something that A, you can't control. 2, may or may not be real. 3, who fucking cares?
Exactly.
Yeah, everyone's doing all these they're like no sugar or no this or no only this or only that, and they could probably just remove cable and they'd be better off. Yeah,
right.
And then eat all the fucking sugar you want.
Right. You're gonna want less.
Yeah, or eggs or whatever you want to eat. Just eat your. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not all bad out there in the media. I saw that. I think you had posted on your Instagram watching the Super Bowl. We didn't actually catch this. We watched the game yesterday, or most of it. But Chris Stapleton's national anthem was. Did you see that? It was something else.
He
man.
was
It
amazing.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, and it was my first Super Bowl. I'd never seen. I don't know anything about football.
It doesn't. It's not. It can only get worse. The national anthem after that one, I feel like.
He was great.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
It actually made we were joking. It made you feel proud to be an American. Like it was one of those ones where you're like, "That's a good goddamn song, and he's a good goddamn singer." Go America.
Yeah, no offense to the Germans, but I said like I'd love to see someone do the German national anthem. and it be as cool as that. There's no fucking.
I don't know what the German national
I don't know what it
anthem
is, but I can guarantee you it's not that cool.
I think it's probably been revised in the last 50 years.
And, now it's just I just picture it should just be whatever your stereotype is, and I'm just picturing like very industrial techno.
That Star Spangled Banner is such a beautiful song.
It is.
And when someone does it right, it's like,
Yeah.
wow.
I think there's like in the Olympics or whatever the World Cups when you hear the different national anthems, I'd say unbiasedly because I don't really consider myself American, or I don't identify that strongly with it, but I would say that the American national anthem is one of, if not the best national anthems. Like just as a melody, it's an actual melody.
Yeah.
Whereas if you hear all these other ones, especially the ones that were influenced by like the English Empire, they fucking suck.
Yeah.
They
I
are
like the
worst.
Scottish one. Like it feels like a folk song. It's something I would do at a gig. It's because it's just gorgeous. I like the French one because it's a real, it just feels like a thing. It's a beautiful theme. And in the Irish one, I'm very biased, but to me the lyrics in that are pretty spine tingling, and it's a gorgeous melody.
Yeah, we're biased too. Like the South African one, the Kosi Sikelele one is like amazing.
Yeah.
But it's so many of them are just like phoned in, I feel like.
Yeah, the American one's the most iconic one for sure. It's like,
Yeah, I wonder if it's just because it's played a lot, like you hear it all the time, and it is iconic because of that, or if I don't know. There's something.
They killed everyone who didn't like it.
There's something in the melody. Actually,
and
it's
there's
like
so
it's just
many
a good
melodies.
song. Yeah,
it's like hook after hook.
yeah, hook after hook.
Great. But did Max Martin write
Yeah.
Star Spangled Banner? Is that, am I right in thinking that?
Yeah.
Okay, speaking
Mutt
of
Lange.
great songs, let's play 2 songs from Pat Byrne here, and we will come back. We can talk about them after the fact. I'm going to just mute up some mics, and we will play those.
I landed on the runway in Chicago. Bought a coffee, then I traded it for a beer. And the connecting flight to Austin felt like nothing. I'm gonna give this place the best part of a year. And the woman at the motel is hard of hearing. She doesn't understand the way I speak. So I straighten out my accent and give her every last cent. Said I need a room to see me through the week. And I'm hungry, but the work's not coming easy. I'm tired except for when I'm not awake. And I put on my shirt and tie, tell myself another lie. No, you're not gonna miss another lucky break. And I wake up early in the morning and fill the day with useful things to do. But the only time it ever feels like living is when I'm down beneath the surface with you. When I'm running from the ruckus, hiding from the circus, down beneath the surface with you. My show last night was wrapped up by 11, and there was 11 people breathing in that air. 2 who knew my name, 2 just watched the game, 7 drowning sorrow with despair. These Sunday nights are breaking me so slowly, chasing down that runaway thrill. Sometimes trying to play the game feels like trying to find a vein. I'm sick and tired of pushing water up this hill. But still I wake up early every morning, and I'll fill the day with useful things to do. But the only time it ever feels like living is when I'm down beneath the surface with you. When I'm running from the ruckus, hiding from the circus, down beneath the surface with you. When I'm running from the ruckus, I'm hiding from the circus. When I'm down beneath the surface with you. She circled the wagons, she didn't give me a chance, and she pulled my heart out with a seismic glance. And this race was over before it even began. If I was a horse they'd shoot me, but I'm only a man. If I had a designer, he was well equipped. He was tried and tested, and he stuck to the script. He drank a bottle of brandy before he drew up my plans. If I was a house, they'd knock me down, but I'm only a man. I get lost in translation, I fly into a rage, I splatter affection all over the page. But this is no love story, we're not Jack and Diane. If If I was a letter you'd return me, but I'm only a man. And the songs of fondness carry me up towards the planets. Then the songs of numbness send me crashing back down to earth. I'd catch the stars if they'd help me know what you're thinking. If I could paint your dreams, then I would, for all that it's worth. But I can't. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm lying here on the floor, waiting for an answer, for your knock at the door. But you're on greener pastures, you've slipped through my hands. Still, if I had wings, I'd fly to you, but I'm only a man.
And we're back.
All right.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun to record. We over-remarked on that. Your guitar sounds fucking amazing because we've been recording a little bit of acoustic guitar in here and just using cheap guitars. And when you just with tuning yours up, we're like, oh, we should probably break out the good guitars because it makes such a huge
You also
it really
gotta,
does.
they gotta settle in. You're playing it every day and go, you know,
Yeah.
I gotta say, yeah, I bought it in Portland, Maine last July or something, and at first I didn't love it, but yeah, I'm playing it all the time, and now
Yeah.
it's like I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you can also hear you've done a lot of gigs. I was saying off air, he has like a nice natural compression in his voice that just makes it. I'm assuming it was easy to mix that.
Yeah. I mean, well, the only things that were difficult were my mic placement. That was-
You ruined it.
yeah.
It sounds
Yeah.
great in here. I love this place. Well done.
So yeah, it's actually, we've done very little actual treatment of anything, but for this kind of recording, it's nice. It sounds nice. Yeah. Also, we've gotten so used to. We did a bunch of stuff. We were working on a previous project, Chevy Mustang, and we were recording on a bus with a laptop and a little. Like the software has gotten so good, you can clean so much up, but it is nice to just put 2 microphones in front of a voice and a guitar, and they're good microphones, and that's it. Like it works. It's nice.
There is a kind of larger than life thing about certain acoustic recordings that I don't like. It's like it's like if you're too close to a movie screen or something like that, you know? It's like, yeah, if you watch a movie on IMAX, it's not necessarily better. You know,
What are you saying? Like in the way some people record a simple acoustic song?
I mean, there's like this, there's diminishing returns where if you were to listen like a robot, it's like everything is just perfect.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you're just too close and it's too larger than life, you know?
Yeah.
We listen to a Nat King Cole vocal and it's perfect. Yeah. There's something perfect about it, even though it doesn't have quite the fidelity that later vocals had or whatever. It's obviously him, but there's just like the perfect distance. You know, what's that term? The necessary distance, in order to perceive anything properly.
Oh, right.
You know, there's like a necessary
Right.
distance from fidelity, I feel like sometimes.
Well, I even noticed when we've been recording the piano here recently, like we were trying various mic placements, and eventually we talked about doing this, but I took one of the mics and put it directly above and behind my head, and it sounded better because that's how I expect to hear the piano.
Right.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you end up miking things in ways that no one hears anything.
That's why drummers who mix put the hi-hat on the left all the time, because they want to sit behind the kit when they're mixing,
So there's a line in that first song it says, fill my day with useful things to do. Did that come from anywhere? Is there a specific influence on that line? I mean, it's a simple line, but there's quite a profound depth to it also.
Well, for me, the song is kind of about the respite from the grind of trying to carve out a living doing what we're doing, which can be really difficult sometimes. And I feel like I'm always overwhelmed and stressed trying to fit as many productive things. You know, a lot of days I'll just sit and watch TV all day, but I always have this stress that I need to be doing more things. And the only time I'm enjoying myself or truly feel like I'm living is when I'm just hanging out with my girlfriend. Like, we went on this camping. I get to do this thing every year where it's a river trip in Terlingua. Have you been out to Terlingua yet in West Texas? You gotta go. It's magical. And everyone gets in these floating devices. There's like 18 people, and I bring my guitar, and we go down through Santa Elena Canyon. We float all day, and then we camp up for the night, and I sing, and everyone drinks whiskey, and then we pack up and we float a bit more. Same thing. We put up our tents, drink whiskey, and sing songs, and there's a chef on board. And I remember getting back from that. Like, I didn't have my phone for 4 days. We were camping and swimming, and I just remember thinking that was so nice to not worry about doing all the shit that you feel like you have to do. And that's when I wrote the song, because it was the only time it really felt like I'd been living.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where.
Well, it's like you being your own boss. You realize that your boss still sucks.
Yeah, right.
You've got this guy who's basically always nagging you, but isn't a good task leader. I know I'm not saying that's how you feel. I'm saying that's how I feel. But it's constantly nagging you when you are. This is our business. All the responsibilities on us. You can't ever relax. And I'm not complaining. Like, there's way worse jobs, but you just can't relax when you're always thinking, I should be doing something right now instead of lazing about.
Yeah, it can keep you up at night. You don't have the luxury of clocking in and clocking out. It's a 24/7. You live with yourself. You're in. You know, that's what I wanted to ask you. It must be kind of nice to have your brothers around, and you can kind of share the workload and just the kind of weight of the whole thing.
I think you just magnify the
Really
anxiety 4 times over, because everyone's always thinking, oh, I should be working. Why isn't he working harder?
Right.
I was working hard. He should have been doing it. It's just like a cycle. But I think we've found a better space now where we've relaxed a little bit in terms of realizing that kind of unnecessary anxiety doesn't serve anything. And that there is...
I like it, because if he didn't write a hit song, you know, I don't know what the fuck I'd be doing. So I personally like it.
He's like, yeah, I have to share it.
Yeah, the only time I've ever felt like, or in the band at least, the only time I've ever felt where there's not that anxiety of that kind of person back here going, you need to do this, is when we've been so busy on tour that we had no time to do anything else.
Right.
Well, because
Like,
you
being
now
on
have an
tour and you just
artificial
you have
boss.
your-
It's like
Yeah.
it's set out for you.
And any chance you can, the best thing to do is actually just get some sleep or rest, because it's totally justifiable to just go check out and like lay down and go on your phone for a few minutes, because like you're basically running on empty, and that feels
Now we just have to
productive.
meet, but then we have to meet and greet. Yeah.
Right. But it's because this is what I have to. You know exactly what to do. You're prepared for it.
That's that Roger
It is
Waters
work.
line, military life is easy, no questions, only answers, and flight. Something like that. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously not easy if you get shot. Like that movie, All Quiet on the Western Front. Did you watch
I haven't watched it yet.
the new one? It's pretty good. It's a bit like Gallipoli, the Peter Weir movie, the World War I movie. But, you know, similar themes, futility and insanity of
I mean, it's the
war.
same reason everyone loves zombie movies, because everyone's fantasizing about an existence where there's no question about what it is you have to do. It's like, we need to not die by zombie, and we need to find food.
Right.
And that's how everyone, I think, feels, because there's something about this, like trying to pretend, like you say, filling your day with useful things to do. Like, that's basically what we're doing a lot of times. Is it's beyond the point of necessary now, because food and all these things in the Western world is so taken for granted that now we're left with like this weird anxiety, and we just wish we could go back to a simple time of just surviving
zombies.
until it happens, and then you're like, holy shit, this is way harder. I wish I could just go back and be anxious watching Netflix.
Right. No, you hit the nail on the head. We have too much spare time and too much ambiguity. Like, there's so many ways. There's so many ways to do especially what we're doing. It's so like.
Jesse sent, our brother sent us a funny tweet or meme. Like someone was complaining about modern capitalism and all this stuff, which some of the complaints are, obviously legitimate, but they're like, don't you imagine what the vibe must have been like back in the day, like just sitting around the fire, hunting, like foraging for food. And like the first response was like, you're welcome to go try that. It's not that fucking easy.
Right, you can do it still.
You can still go and grow your own food or hunt your own animal and like not have the creature comforts of Wi-Fi. But like in reality, no one actually wants to step away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the idea that anxiety is a new thing. I'm sure it's shifted form. The nature of it probably has changed, but it's I think it's naive to think that ancient people didn't have anxiety.
Nothing has changed.
No, but it was totally different. Like when you're floating down the river, obviously in the back of your mind, you still have reality to go back to. But essential life is become something different. You're eating, you're floating. Are you guys paddling, or is it like a very easy float?
Some people sit in a big boat and just float. And me and my girlfriend had a canoe that we were paddling.
How can that be related? If you're bringing whiskey and a guitar and a chef, how is that related to?
No, I'm saying you get a
life from a different time.
You get you get a tiny little taste of where your attention is shifted. Like anxiety, I think, is coming from this place where your attention is bouncing around. You don't have a strong attention on one thing or another. And so it's bouncing between all sorts of different things or something in the future. And if your attention is focused on, if you're canoeing, even if it's not dangerous, if it's not like whitewater rafting, you actually have to give attention to something different, which is not living in the future. You're having to give attention to a paddle or to avoid that rock, whatever. And I think that feels like where most of this modern anxiety and modern
I think it's
minor fears are coming from.
It's the distance
from
that
death.
you are. Well, yeah, from that, but it's the distance that you are from yourself at any given moment that produces the tension of anxiety. And often for modern people, when they go back into do something that's slightly more natural, they return, like, I feel like it feels almost literal to me, like you literally return to yourself a little bit more because you are not thinking as far away, whether it's into the past or the future, about what should have been done or should be done, and you're closer to this moment of now in eternity that is at the source of all anxiety. And then that obviously relates to death ultimately, because that's what you're constantly worrying about is this inevitable thing that might happen in the future, which it's inevitable eventually, and that's occasionally you have maybe more of a acceptance of that. And I'm not totally, because like anyone that says they're not afraid of death is lying or has died and is actually, I think there's like 3 people I've heard say that where I go, okay, I think they might not be because they've come to terms with it. Right. But yeah,
I think it's like the lyric is filling your day with useful things. Obviously that's going to be a different scale for different people, and their idea of useful things is going to be different, but having some purpose in what you're doing probably alleviates a ton of that.
I just started listening to Report to Greco. I think I got to stop it because the fucking narrator is annoying, so I got to go read it like the olden days. But
so that's the book
by Cousin Tyches. Yeah,
he wrote.
He wrote Lost Temptation of Christ and Zorba the Greek, and but the beginning of the book is that it's about this pressure he feels to leave nothing for death. Like he just wants to leave death some kind of rusty bones, So he's got this kind of pressure to like extract every single lost drip out of his life and to leave nothing for death once he's.
Have you seen the Banshees of Inisherin?
Yeah.
And that's kind of his dilemma as well, because death's approaching and he wants to get all the shit done.
I love that movie.
It's my favorite movie of all time.
Yes,
What is it?
The Banshees of Inisherin. It's Colin Farrell and
that's a new one you've done.
Martin McDonagh is like the writer of our times. I
Yeah.
think.
Huh.
Yeah, that
It's
was
the same
awesome.
guy, same writer as In Bruges.
In Bruges, yeah.
That was such a refreshing movie because it paced like a movie. It didn't feel like I haven't seen a movie anymore that feels like it's anyone that's ever watched a film before, because they're all in this like television or TikTok view of writing and editing, and that movie just felt like it was back to what we're talking about, this idea of anxiety. Like I didn't feel any anxiety. Like it felt like it's moving along at the pace exactly that it should.
It was perfect.
Yeah, like you're just in it.
Yeah, there's a magic I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'll watch it. There's a magic to that filmmaking where, like, if I don't go onto my phone while watching a show, that's obviously a lot of that's on me, but there's something special because there's a pacing in certain shows which, if it's super slow and unconsciously slow, then I'll have to turn off and go and get bored and want to go on my phone or be distracted. But I've watched other movies which are like, they are much slower, but the pacing of it, like the
correct,
intentionality of it, is so it's correct. That's
They're trying
that's
to
magic.
in 2 hours. You're trying to give someone the sense of time passing, and now every kind of modern movie or most TV and all that kind of stuff is just like a series of events.
Yeah.
So it's like this. There's no sense of time. Whereas Kubrick was a little excessive at times, but you did feel like, if 2 years passed over the course of these scenes, it gave you like a microcosm of that feeling. And even like Banshees of Inisherin, you got a sense of the slowness of time on a tiny island, with no outside influence and a tiny town and no new influences, and you kind of sympathize with both characters. I thought the movie was
I think
amazing.
we've talked about this before, but fucking Colin Farrell has
Underrated.
such a good career also. Like
Yeah.
he could have just become another fucking Marvel superhero. Like he had that potential.
Yeah.
'cause-
Right.
but
He
he's
actually
made
didn't
great-
waste his looks. You know what I mean? Because he's so good looking, he could have been whatever superstar he wanted to be, but he turned out to be cool. That's pretty cool.
I saw him walk. I saw him walking on Griffith Park once in LA. That's my celebrity sighting.
I saw a snake once.
He seems like a genuinely cool guy, though.
Yeah.
And since he like sobered up, and what was the movie he did that was like a major flop? It was like
Was it a big Hollywood movie?
Troy.
Yeah.
It was Oliver Stone or something.
Oh, right.
Alexander.
Alexander. Right.
It actually wasn't that bad.
I didn't even
Angelina
watch
Jolie was horrendous, but there were elements of it that were pretty interesting.
I've listened to an interview where he said that was the turning point for him, and because he was sure, he was like, had his speech for the Oscars and everything, and then everyone hated it, and he just kind of reevaluated everything, and he's been really specific about what he takes on.
Yeah.
And he only does good stuff.
Yeah.
Like even in the new Batman, I thought he was great. Like he was great, and I liked the new Batman.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Seen it yet. He did that movie Undine as well, about the mermaid movie.
Yeah.
I thought that was great as well.
I haven't seen that either. Yeah, I'm gonna go back.
It's
and
a similar pace from what you guys are talking about, probably a little bit faster. But I mean, it's a little bit more fantasy, but it's still really good.
Yeah.
It is.
That's. It's just nice to see a good movie. It feels like it's been a fucking long
It just
time.
shows you how fucking difficult it is to make a good
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
I guess we do romanticize the past. Like there were a ton of shit movies. We only keep the good ones.
Yeah.
Well, look, why don't we wrap this up? Because I know you got to get to a gig tonight. We'll share all the links to Instagram and all that. Thank you so much for coming on and playing. Where are you playing? If you want to just tell us a couple places you're playing over the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, I recently took on a residency in Austin. I play every Monday at the Saxon Pub, which is where I'm going now, from 6 to 7:30 with a full band, and that's fun. But I'm doing a short East Coast run when South by is happening, because
He's getting out.
I've done South by for the last 4 years, and last year I did like 11 gigs in 8 days, and I'm not doing this again because it costs you money. You feel like it's going to be this huge thing, and it never is. So I'm doing North by Northeast, and I'm doing some gigs up on the East Coast. I can't remember the dates, but it's all on my website. And then I'm doing a tour with Jamie Harris, who's an amazing songwriter in Nashville. She lived in Austin for a long time. We're doing a tour, the Austin to Nashville tour in April. And then there's lots of Kerrville Folk Festival this summer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's out past Fredericksburg, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all on my website. All
That's
the
a lot.
Yeah, we'll check that
That's
out.
a lot of gigging.
Yeah, I'm busy gigging, but I love it.
So I just saw recently that it's the union that what's his name, John's involved in here. The musicians.
Oh, right.
They're trying to pressure South by Southwest to pay the musicians because you pay whatever the entrance. There's like a basic entrance or application fee. They're drawing in a lot more revenue than
They're gonna pay them in fucking NFTs or something.
They offered NFTs last year.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Everyone was offered NFTs.
Yeah.
But no, they don't pay for official showcases. So I do some private things to compensate, like some private companies host parties, and they're kind of soulless things, but they pay pretty well. But all the official ones, I pay like a 6-piece band, and I don't get paid. So it always costs money, and it never leads to anything.
Like I get that. I can see it in the beginning when, like, whenever it was 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know when South by Southwest started. It's like 20 or more years now,
I'm
right?
sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a growing thing, exposure for everybody. That's fine. At a certain point, it becomes an industry. They're making money. Like, so
Absolutely.
It makes sense to pay musicians.
Well, also, I feel like it's a festival for people who don't live in Austin, because if I still lived in Ireland and I was playing South by Southwest, that would be an amazing 2 weeks. Come to Austin, hang out in Austin for 2 weeks and play some shows in America. But when you live here, it's just like you're still playing in Austin, but the traffic's just way worse and you're not making any money. It's like
We did it twice, 2 years, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing to enjoy for me about that. It's just hectic. And then also when you're trying to actually showcase, hoping someone sees you, there's that inevitably, I think, puts a negative spin on things, at least for us.
It's like you're trying to get picked for a
Basketball team.
in middle school. Yeah, you get that feeling of like, I hope they like me.
yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You got to have no expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also lugging gear across 6th Street, holding up traffic.
Yeah, not fun.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. This will be up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts later on today, maybe tomorrow. And then, like we said, go follow Pat on all the socials, which we'll post in all the links. And we'll see you next week. I believe we have a guest. I need to check. Whatever. I'll edit this part out. See you guys next week.
See ya.